Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. Once again, I told you a few years ago that I was going to do an update on Debanhi Escobar's case, because at that time it was all a mess. There was a lot of information coming out all the time, and it was not well understood what had happened. I won't lie to you, now it's also not well understood what happened. But let's talk about this again, and see maybe what's new, what changed, and revive what happened to him. Debanhi Escobar was born on September 4th, 2003 in the city of Monterrey, in Mexico, where she lived with her biological mother for approximately a year. Although we do not know the name of this woman, we know that she is the sister of Mario Escobar, who would end up adopting the little girl with his wife, Dolores Basaldua, after a year. With them, she moved to the La Enramada neighborhood, which is located in the city of Apodaca, in the state of Nuevo León. There, Devani grew up as a normal, healthy, happy child, along with her uncles, who actually raised her as their daughter. Although it was never publicly revealed why, Dolores and Mario adopted Devani. We know that from the beginning, they legally obtained her custody, becoming her parents under the law and treating her as such. Devani was raised by loving parents, with whom she got along very well. She had a very close relationship with them, which was maintained even as she grew up. By the time the events happened, in April of 2002, Devani was a student at the Autonomous University of Nuevo León, where she had been attending for a year to study criminal law, although her goal was to graduate with a degree in forensics. Starting college allowed Devani to meet new people, and her social circle began to grow. Among these new friendships was Sarai, a girl she had met at the beginning of 2022 and with whom she had gotten along very well. Since they met a few months earlier, the two girls had gone out on several occasions. So, when on Friday, April 8th, around 10 in the evening, Sarai called her to invite her out, Devani didn't hesitate to accept. That night, anyway, they were not going to go out alone. Yvonne, a friend of Sarai's, was also going to go. During that phone call, Devani and Sarai finished arranging the details to meet. About an hour later, at 11 o'clock at night, the three girls went to the agreed meeting point and then asked. A Didi. For those who don't know this application, it is a transport company that connects drivers with people who decide to take trips. It's like Uber, but it's a Didi. The three girls were headed to Simón Bolívar Street, near the San Nicolas Center on that occasion. The girls had heard that there was a private party at that place. Although before heading to the house where it was taking place, they decided to stop by an open supermarket. 24 hours, the usual. There they decided to buy alcoholic beverages and other things to bring to this party. Although they weren't there for long, as the gathering was much quieter than they had expected. A bit bored, after being there for a while, they decided to order another Didi to go to another party that was taking place in a villa on Numancia Road in the Nueva Castilla neighborhood. They arrived at this second party around 1 in the morning on Saturday, April 9th, but this also wasn't what they expected. By the time they arrived at the party, it was already ending. However, this didn't discourage them at all. It was still early, and they wanted to keep having fun, so the three of them started searching on their social networks, in chats, for another party. That's how 20 minutes later, they found one on Numancia Street, not far from where they were already. Unlike the other two parties, none of the girls knew the organizers of this third one, but that wasn't a problem. Once they arrived, they were let in without any trouble. By that point, the girls had already had quite a bit to drink, and Devani was the most affected, being quite drunk, and things didn't improve at this party, where she continued to drink. Until 2 hours later, when the young girl's state of intoxication became much worse, she couldn't keep up on her feet alone, let alone talk coherently, and she even became aggressive with several people who were trying to help her. That's when several of the organizers approached Sarai and Yvonne to ask them to leave with Devani. It was clear that she needed to rest. But the problem was that the girls didn't want to leave. For a few minutes, Sarai and Yvonne thought about how they could get Devani to go home without them having to accompany her. This is how Yvonne remembered that she had David's number, the driver of the second Didi, who had taken them to that place. They had really liked this driver, and he had even made them feel safe. So they had agreed that when they wanted to leave, they would call him to come and pick them up. Following what they had arranged, after 3:30 in the morning, Yvonne wrote to the driver to come to the party to pick them up. When he arrived at 3:54, the only one who got in the car was Devani. But it wasn't easy. She thought very differently from her friends. Devani believed that the other two were exaggerating, and she actually wasn't that drunk. So it wasn't easy to get her into the car. Devani resisted, and once they managed to get her in. She was also hostile towards David, refusing to give him an address to take her to, and demanding they return to the party. It took the driver several minutes to get Devani to cooperate and give him an address. She didn't seem to even remember where her home was, so she ended up giving him the wrong address, which David realized when they arrived there at 4:25 in the morning. It was a place in the middle of nowhere, so it was obvious that the girl didn't live there. With the little patience he had left, David tried to communicate with the girl's friends to get the correct address of her house. But even though he wrote to them and called them several times, none of them answered. Devani, who also didn't seem to have much patience, started demanding that the Didi driver let her out. For several minutes, David refused, asking her to call her mother. But Devani paid no attention to him and kept insisting, between insults, that he let her out. With no more idea what to do, David let the girl out. They were at kilometer 15 of the Numancia Road, right where it intersects with the road to Nuevo Laredo, in the Nueva Castilla neighborhood, where there was nothing, as she had no idea what else to do, and she didn't want to spend any more time on Devani. The man told her. He took a picture of the girl standing in the middle of the road and sent it to his friends, who responded, "Thanks, but we don't know what to do. She's unbearable." In the next messages they exchanged with David, they explained that Devani had become very violent. She even bit them and hit them. Yvonne and Sarai told the driver they were trying to contact their friend's parents, but they had not managed to get them to respond. David, for his part, shared his experience. He told them he had tried to get the girl to communicate with her parents, but Devani did not take it well at all and had insulted him again. When David looked up from his phone to make sure Devani was still there, he was surprised to find that the 19-year-old girl was gone. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Not quite sure what to do, and noting that he had already lost a fair bit of work time, David decided it was time to start accepting rides again and forget about the strange moment that the three girls had put him through. Devani's disappearance went unnoticed until the next morning, when Mario and Dolores woke up and realized their daughter was not in the room. Upon checking their phones, they noticed they had several messages and missed calls from Sarai and Yvonne, but no message from their daughter explaining where she was or if she had decided to spend the night at her friend's house. Concerned, the girl's parents spoke with her two friends, and immediately afterwards, Mario went to the police to report the young woman's absence, giving Sarai's contact as the last person who had seen her. When the officers got in touch with her, the young woman had no problem providing the contact of David, and also to provide the photo that he had taken of her friend. This photo was the one that went viral on social networks in Mexico, and gradually, all over the world. From the start, this case was extremely high profile. The way Devani had disappeared, and how her friends had decided to send her off alone with a stranger. Being drunk, it led thousands of users to turn to social media to comment on what happened. And yes, the truth is that surely, while I was saying what had happened, you must have been like, "No, I would never do something like that," because that's what we were all saying. You never leave a drunk friend alone in a taxi, an Uber, a Didi, whatever you want with a stranger, not even with a friend or a person you've met. Also, at a party, usually you don't do that. Usually everyone goes out, everyone leaves. Is that so? Most people then judged Eben and Sarai. Let's be honest, it was completely valid. It's very complicated for me and for everyone else who saw this case to understand how these two supposed friends decided they didn't want to take care of another because she was drunk. But besides, it's not even like they sent her home. I mean, according to what David says, also because all of this is based on these three testimonies. They didn't give her either the address of her home or the address of the house, any of them to talk to her parents and say a friend is going there, take care of her, let her sleep there. They simply put her in the vehicle and let her go, without providing an address or instructions on where to take her. Let's see. It was obvious that Devani was not in a condition to be alone or defend for herself. The security cameras show how, at 1:45 in the morning, Devani was running from a man in a white shirt who was chasing her outside the farm. He tried to stop her, but she responded with kicks and slaps, something that clearly alerted many people. This is why Yvonne and Sarai tried to explain by saying she gets stubborn, to leave her alone, that she doesn't care, that her parents were lawyers, that she would give us money if we left her. After that, she goes out alone, running towards the pool as if she wanted to jump in. I stop her and tell her to calm down. She starts to gesture and says to leave her alone. I step back and she starts to run and circles the pool. Moreover, she said that the boy in the white shirt was just trying to calm her down. Meanwhile, the Mexican police had started the investigation, questioning both of the girls as well as David, who from the start appeared cooperative with the investigators, handing over their cell phones so that the detectives could reconstruct an exact timeline of events and corroborate their stories. With the information they extracted from the cell phones and their statements, the police focused the search operations on the road junction where Devani had gotten out of the DD. Upon conducting the initial search, the officers noticed that the intersection was monitored by the city's security cameras. So they quickly accessed the recordings, and with them, they were able to follow Devani's movements minutes after she got out of the car. In those recordings, it was possible to see how the girl crossed to the front and kept walking. A few minutes later, at 4:29 in the morning, Devani was caught on the security cameras of a transport company called Alcosa. The cameras at that place captured how the girl passed by the entrance of the company and peeked into the booth, probably with the intention of getting a remise, a taxi that will take her home or back to the party. However, she didn't linger. After a few seconds, Devani kept walking. Of course, these images indicated to the police which path to follow, and while a number of officers were searching the area for the girl, others were sent to request security footage from other establishments that were around there. Thanks to those recordings, they could follow the path that Devani had made to a motel called New Castile, where 2 security cameras recorded her. The first camera that captured her was at 4:33, and it was actually the camera of a restaurant next to the motel. Those images were completely different from what they had seen before. And it's that, instead of walking calmly like in the previous ones, in those that had been captured by the restaurant, Devani was running desperately, as if she was running away from someone. After that terrifying image, the girl was not seen again on the security cameras, until 20 minutes later, at 4:54 in the morning, when she is seen walking towards the motel's cisterns on the other side of the restaurant. That became the last living image anyone would have of Devani. The fact that Devani appeared to be fleeing in the images made the search operation even more intense in the surrounding area. It was no longer just a few police officers, but several dozen who worked alongside tracking dogs, drones, and other technologies used in the search for people. But they were of no help, as not even a small trace of the girl was found. Another type of investigation was taking place on the internet, with people from all over Latin America paying attention to everything that was coming out of the case, and the most striking part is that of the security cameras. There were hundreds of cameras all along the route that Devani took that night. One of the biggest questions people had was, how did she end up so drunk? Suspicions pointed towards the possibility that the young woman had been drugged by someone else, something that could have been found out with the cameras at the party. Something that either wasn't investigated or never came to light, since not all details of a case are shared with the public. But precisely giving few statements about it made those who were paying attention suspicious. The only real way to know this, after Devani died, would be with a toxicological examination. But it's also clear that the body was decomposing at the time it was found. And in that state, it's harder to analyze things. In fact, from the prosecutor's office of Nuevo León, it was said that the body did not meet the conditions to perform toxicology tests to rule out the presence of alcohol or drugs in the blood. Around that time, moreover, many users decided to delve into it themselves to see what they were being told. Among others, the YouTuber Mafian TV appeared, who was at first mostly useful in visualizing this place where Devani disappeared. He went to the search area with his camera and did live streams for YouTube, showing that there were security cameras everywhere covering different angles that could be of great help. On April 10th, 2 days after Devani's disappearance, there was still no news about her whereabouts. What had happened to her? Hence, the highest authority of the local commission for the search for people in Nuevo León, Mrs. Maria de la Luz Valderas Rodriguez, announced at a press conference that a special committee would be formed to search for the young woman. During that same conference, she announced that the only suspect was David, who had been arrested the previous day. The problem with the arrest is that there was no evidence pointing to the driver as being responsible for the disappearance. As a result, after 2 days of interrogations, the suspect was released and the investigation reverted back to the beginning. By that time, Mario and Dolores started organizing their own searches. They believed that the authorities weren't doing enough to find their daughter and decided to take matters into their own hands, calling through the media and social networks all those people who wanted to collaborate with them. Dozens of volunteers participated in these searches, which also did not yield results. For 12 days, both authorities and friends and family of Devani searched for her tirelessly, but made no progress. Only when the National Commission for the Search of Missing Persons joined was the discovery made that ended the Escobar family's hopes of finding their daughter alive. The discovery was made on the night of April 21st, when specialized agents swept the area again and opened the cisterns next to the motel and restaurant, New Castile. Upon opening the cement container more than 4 meters deep, they discovered that at the bottom of it was a body in an advanced state of decomposition. The state of this body was so bad that at first glance it couldn't be distinguished who it was, although it could be said that it was a woman. Given the location where it had appeared, suspicions that it was Devani didn't take long to arise, but this couldn't simply be confirmed. To determine whether it was really Devani or not, the police got in touch with the girl's biological mother and obtained a DNA sample to compare with one taken from the body. The results of the analysis were ready the next day, that is, on April 22nd, and confirmed the suspicions. Indeed, it was the body of Debanhi Escobar. The autopsy that was performed determined that the girl's body was already in a state of decay, indicating that she had been dead for at least 5 days. In addition to that, the forensic team discovered that Devani had died due to a deep contusion in the skull. That same day, amid social outrage, then Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador addressed his country in a national broadcast to mourn the death of Devani, and publicly promised that the Attorney General's office would join the investigation to ensure those responsible would be arrested. This message was not innocent. It was meant to calm the press and the people, but the controversy was already more than in place. The discovery of Devani's body and the results of the autopsy occurred in a broader context of gender-based violence in Mexico, where thousands of women have disappeared and many cases of femicide have gone unpunished. The outrage that followed the discovery of Devani's body translated into protests and demonstrations across the country, where women demanded justice, and a shift in the authorities' approach to safety and protection of women. Social media also played a crucial role in spreading the information and organizing demonstrations. The hashtag Justice for Devani became a symbol of the fight for women's rights and the demand for a justice system that listens and protects victims. Devani's family was devastated after learning the autopsy results. Mario Escobar expressed his pain and frustration over the lack of answers surrounding the circumstances of his daughter's death. The family had been seeking justice and clarity from the moment of her disappearance, and the revelation of the cause of death did nothing but increase this pain and their struggle for answers. Mexican society, for its part, also reacted with indignation. Activists and human rights organizations began demanding that authorities thoroughly investigate Devani's death, questioning the role of the New Castle Motel and the possible complicity of the authorities in the case. The demonstrations and protests continued, and many women felt inspired to share their own experiences of violence and harassment, creating an atmosphere of solidarity and struggle. Devani's body had been found in a place the police had supposedly already searched not once, but several times. So there were two possible theories. The first was that somehow the police were involved, either because they had very superficially combed the area where the girl had gone missing, or because they had deliberately ignored the discovery. The second theory, which was what the victim's father believed, maintained that the body had not been there from the beginning, but rather that it had been placed in the cistern after the search began, taking advantage of a moment when the authorities were not around. However, the police firmly denied both theories. In a public statement, the prosecution even claimed there was no reason to believe that Devani had been murdered, as the family insisted. According to them, the young woman's death seemed to be a tragic mistake. They maintained that the girl had probably fallen accidentally into the cistern and hit her head in the process, which, combined with her state of intoxication, led to her losing her life. But this did not convince Devani's family. They were sure that something else had happened to their daughter, and that's why they demanded in front of the media that a second autopsy be performed. The press and public noticed this demand. In general, quickly supported, putting increasing pressure on the authorities and the police. In fact, thanks to anonymous informants, several media outlets published information that the police had publicly denied, showing that their work was anything but honest. Only 20 days after Devani's disappearance, the police released the videos from the various recording cameras that had captured the girl that night. With this information, which had previously been denied to the victim's family, the Escobars decided to start a parallel investigation involving doctors, forensic experts, and private detectives, who analyzed the information they had at hand. At that time, Devani's father clarified that in the videos he had seen, he found a fight with her friends, something they clarified in their statements. However, he says that it looks like, as they were leaving the party, one of the friends aggressively grabbed her by the hair. May 13th, more than a month after the disappearance and subsequent death of Devani, the results of the autopsy, which had been done independently, were made public. In this report, the girl had been repeatedly hit in the head with a blunt object. In addition, the report described that the body had injuries consistent with a fight. She hadn't fallen and drowned, as the prosecution maintained. Had she fought someone for her life? And proof of this was the detail in the forensic report that explained that no signs were found that indicated the girl had died due to the fall or the drowning. That there was no water in Debanhi's lungs indicated that she had died elsewhere, not in the cistern. Another detail in the report was that it stated that Devani showed signs of having been sexually abused, something that was never mentioned in the official autopsy. The results, so different from one autopsy to another, made the suspicions surrounding the police investigation even bigger. Facing the accusations and social pressure, the Mexican president ordered those days for the victim's body to be exhumed again. To carry out a third autopsy on the 30th of that month, The results of this third autopsy were known on the 18th of July through an official report signed and carried out by the president of the Institute of Forensic Sciences of Mexico. It was determined that Devani had died from asphyxiation, but not from suffocation. That is, she had not drowned in the cistern. However, unlike the second autopsy, it denied that there were signs or wounds that allowed to assert that she had been sexually assaulted. Despite the differences, the agreement on the cause of death completely dismissed the prosecutor's version, which claimed that Devani had fallen and drowned in the cistern. But after this, the investigation seems to have stopped. If there are updates or advances, the truth is that they were not made known. The only change we know is that after this, the prosecution decided to change the label of the case and start working on it as a femicide. But since then, the only update we had was in January last year, when 2 workers from the Nueva Castilla motel were accused. They are Ana Luisa N. and Arita Urit N., who were accused of making false statements about the case, although it was never made public. What did they say? And if their false testimony meant that they were trying to distract the investigation from the real culprit, what did it mean in general? In mid-January, they were sentenced to a special probationary regime, which means that every week they have to report to a police officer and they cannot leave the state. Meanwhile, the investigation continues. More than 2 years after the events, we do not know if there is any wrongdoer or person responsible in the authorities' sights. In fact, we don't even know if the case is still actually being investigated. As for the controversies, the truth is they have not ceased. At the beginning of last year, 2023, several streaming platforms showed interest in making a series about Devani's story. Shortly after, it was revealed that it actually arose from a project presented by the girl's parents to the different producers. The news sparked controversy and criticism, with people accusing Devani's family of trying to profit from their daughter's tragic death. The magnitude of the criticism was so great that the project was halted and never premiered. In October of that same year, Mario Escobar was again in the public eye, when he took legal action against a news production company that had made a documentary about his daughter's case. Unrelated to them, he claimed that the documentary re-victimized the young girl. The greatest outrage came in December of that year, when Mario announced his candidacy for federal deputy as part of the political party Citizens Movement. The news was received very poorly, and again he was accused of wanting to profit from his daughter's death. Although the reality is that during his campaign, he made reference to promoting laws and emergency protocols for the case of missing persons, something that deeply affected him. The election for his position was held in June of this year, but Mario did not manage to be elected. It was announced a few days ago that the case would not be considered a femicide. The General Prosecutor's Office, or federal government representation, the federal government representation did not consider it a femicide, despite the inquiries and results of the expert opinions, which at the very least show inconsistencies in what was put forward as the official version. After nearly 3 years, Devani's parents hope to find support from the country's president. The parents are seeking a third independent expert to confirm that Devani lost her life at the hands of another person and that it was not an accident. But Devani's father doesn't stop there, as he also reported a man for a dark humor joke that re-victimized the young girl. Sergio Verduzco, also known as Platanito, was involved in a lawsuit brought before the National Council to Prevent Discrimination, or Council to Prevent Discrimination, for a joke about Devani's death, which the young girl's father did not take well. Verduzco's defense was that he did not attack anyone, nor did he mock the girl's death. According to him, the joke was about how unfortunate the girl's death was. How did she die? Drowned in Monterey, where there is no water? The verdict favored Verduzco, who won the lawsuit. He claims that the mockery was actually targeted at the government's verdict, highlighting its absurdity. Nevertheless, Devani's father was unsatisfied with the outcome. Furthermore, Platanito, in a press conference, attacked Mario Escobar, questioning his paternity, stating that he believes he is not Devani's father. Let's say that beyond whether he won or not, or whether it was some type of discrimination or revictimization, the joke didn't amuse the internet or the girl's family. Another thing that needs to be clarified before we continue is that Devani's father didn't ask Verduzco for money. He admitted it himself. We still don't know exactly what happened to Devani and who was responsible. But, according to the latest statements from her parents, the investigation is underway, and it's likely that any updates will be announced very soon. It's not the first time I've come across comments on the internet from people asserting things as if they were certain. In 2022, and even a bit of 2023, there were many people giving false details on the internet, and many others simply believing it. It's not the first time I've seen it. I have to say it again, and it impresses me. Because once you want to search these details to know, even the origin of them, it's very difficult to find. Keep in mind that, as in other cases, there are users who fabricate things and then are replicated by other, larger, but not very serious media. The important thing is not to believe everything one sees just because it supports a theory we consider true. This tweet serves as a perfect example because it encapsulates everything possible, according to the speaker. It's been months since the death of Debanhi Escobar, and it's just now discovered what we all knew, that she was murdered. And there are already videos, photos from the friends' chats, the check they have given to each one. Incredible that the police did nothing. Her father did that. Everything you see here is actually a rumor, except for the autopsy results, which would indicate that someone hit Devani and that she didn't die from drowning. With this then, let's move on to the theories. There are actually a lot of theories, so many that it's not even worth mentioning them, because some don't even have any kind of foundation. The biggest problem one has when looking at this case is Devani's attitude: drunk. What happened? Did she drink a lot, more than her friends? Enough to react with such anger? Because what sometimes happens is that the effect of a drug is interpreted as drunkenness, especially those used to confuse women at bars. Something you've probably heard 1,000 times is burundanga, at least here in Argentina. That's just one example. Some internet users have accused Devani's friends of handing her over to someone while she was drunk or drugged, handed her over to trafficking or something similar. Of course, the fact that they were such bad friends did not make them look good on the internet. They also accused Gustavo Soto of her murder. This accusation came from two sources. He was accused by several YouTubers of being involved, and a supposed chat between Devani and one of the young woman's friends was leaked on Twitter. In reality, Mafia on TV was the first to bring to light these supposed conversations, which at first were shown as a photo of a cell phone screen. That's what was going around out there. It was said that Gustavo Soto was called the Jaguar, and in this chat, supposedly Devani said that she was afraid of the Jaguar. Soto went to the prosecutor's office to voluntarily declare and clear up doubts, since the strongest thing against him was the fact that his half-brother owned the company Alcosa, which is where Devani walked that night looking for someone. Various YouTube videos alleged his involvement in the incident, but Soto clarified that he lived in Texas and was not even close to the place at that time. According to him, he wasn't even nicknamed the Jaguar, but, if anything, his friends referred to him as King Kong. Now, these are the chats that have been circulating recently. And are they so fake? But it's not just how they look from the first photos that came out to these screenshots. They are fake. Also in the conversation. Let's read them. Really, they left. Without me, this would be Devani. You always act so sassy. We don't have to endure you. It's not our problem. Get back as you can. Tell Jaguar dude. I don't have battery. That guy scares me. I'll send you an Uber. I'll let you know when it's outside. It's almost here, 2 minutes away. Start heading out, but the driver looks odd. This would happen 10 minutes later. Do you view everyone this way? Relax, he's not odd, really. I know him, he can be trusted. Don't tell him that I don't like this anymore. The friend replies, we're coming for you right now. We're close. Get out. I'm with Jaguar. Be nice. Okay? I'll wait for you here. And then there's another conversation, too, that's been going around. What could this mean about this friend with this Jaguar? Okay, are you coming now? Devani is all drunk. Don't delay. Will you guys come to the party, or will I just take the doll? Are we going to go to an after with the guys? The stupid Devani will go with the guy to the hotel, but she's all drunk and drugged. We ordered the Uber. It's your chance. I'm on my way. You put the doll in, leave her in the Uber. I'll take care of it. Don't be late. Do everything discreetly. She's all drunk. Thanks, doll. Okay. Not only are the chats very, very, very obviously fake, but also the conversation in general makes no sense. With what we can see and verify in the security cameras, they have no relation to the timeline or the facts based on the testimonies and cameras. The incredible thing about all this is that I want you to understand that once these kinds of lies are spread out, a lot of people are left with that. Many people will never see this video or anything related to Devani again. They probably won't find out until we know something more, if we ever do find out anything more. So this notion about the chats and the Jaguar and everything else is going to stay like that for them forever. The same with the concept that Devani's father asks for money when he didn't ask the clown who made the joke for money. As I understand it anyway, I won't vouch for anyone. She wanted a political position to take action in cases like her daughter's. And she also publicly said that she didn't have any fundraising donation sites or accounts. She had to come out and clarify it because there were people impersonating her, which obviously other people saw and thought, she's asking for money? Another thing she was criticized for anyway was wanting to make a series about her daughter. This project that Devani's parents were trying to promote. That could well have made them money. That's true, isn't it? It depends on what deal they got from the people who would buy it. But they could also have gotten a lot of attention, and that opportunity was lost precisely because there was a lot of people criticizing this project. I know the theory part is short, but if you want to make any other clarifications below in the comments, please do so. We all can know, but it would also be good if they weren't gossip. From Twitter. For everything else, if you have more information, please leave it down in the comments, so stay tuned. Either way, this means we're going to have to do a second update at some point. And hopefully it will have useful information for the family, and it can all be cleared up at some point. That's the end of the video update on Debanhi Escobar's case. Share your thoughts in the comments. As always, feel free to recommend cases or provide more information there to my email that's in the description of all the channel's videos. So, here are the Patreons and the channel members. Thanks for supporting me through these means. And with nothing else to say, here's a new video. Here's a recommended video. You can subscribe by clicking on my face, and I'll see you in another video.